My name is Tamar Clark-Brown and I'm a curator within the Arts Technologies team at Serpentine. Tonight I'm joined by artist and game designer Danielle Brathwaite-Shirley, who joins us for a live playtesting session and interactive murder mystery called Your Presence Alone Changes How Others Breathe. For anyone new to Danielle's work, they predominantly work with animation, sound, performance, video games, intertwining lived experience with fiction to record and archive Black trans stories, both living and past. Tonight's event comes as part of a 6-month research and development period that Danielle has been working together with us on. For this, we were really looking at what it means to kind of formalise around the question, how can the audience themselves be the controller without a peripheral device like a joystick or a keyboard? This R&D period, which is the first of its kind for us, was really a time to kind of prototype dreams into realities, to test and shape advanced technologies, in this case especially gaming. Danielle's been testing games, experimenting with interaction models, with real-time input and more to continue exploring the civic and activist potential of gaming, and has built 2 prototypes for engagement, one that uses eye tracking and one that uses facial scanning, developed together with Prouse, who I hope is also in the audience tonight. In the background you can see some of the videos from this time, and we will be kind of cycling through some of this footage during this event as well. On April the 11th, we held a physical playtest and prototype sharing session called We Can't Do This Alone at Camberwell Studios. If you joined earlier before the event officially started today, you also would have seen a documentary film that included some footage of this event by Ella Frost. This tonight is a second playtest, and it's an opportunity to really hear your feedback and questions as we kind of navigate through the work, share learning, research, technical insights from the time, but also, and also most excitingly, to kind of work through this play that Danielle has developed for this time. So we're really excited to hear what you think and to see how you play, most importantly. So housekeeping, just a little bit, because we can't wait to jump in and get started. We are all about kind of co-creation and community here, so we want you to get noisy, get rowdy, get in the chat, ask all your questions. Everything that you ask, the way that you interact with the game and the way that you interact with us tonight is really going to shape what happens in the event, so we really do need to hear your voices. You will already find Alex Boyce in the chat room, who is our chat room moderator, and who will be dropping in any advice, also sharing with me certain questions as I'm watching live, but also listening in my ear. So any questions, please just put them in there. The event's going to last just over an hour. Please do ask your questions throughout. Don't feel shy to kind of wait for a moment. We will just kind of ask them throughout the event, so don't be shy. And the live stream will remain online indefinitely here on our Twitch at Serpentine UK, also on Serpentine YouTube. So just before we get started, I just want to say thank yous. Thank you to Danielle for creating what's set to be another incredibly exciting experimental event, as always. And thanks to the wider team behind tonight. Our technical manager, Ralph Pritchard, Roxy Zahir for the Twitch UI design, our live captioner, Joanne Petrie, Arts Tech team, Eva Yeager, Alex Boyce, Victoria Ivanova, and Kay Watson, who is currently watching at home with her new bubbly. Thank you also to Rob Prouse, who developed these prototypes along with Danielle. And lastly, thank you to you, to the audience, for playing along tonight. Now let the games begin. Let's the mystery unfold and let's crack this case.
Welcome, travellers. I am your host for your journey today. And our journey starts with a story. Years ago, something formed in the centre of the earth and began to exert its power on those of us who were on the surface. And like gravity, its power was invisible. We couldn't see it or detect it really. Only in the actions we began to take. And the actions we began to take were to subject each other to traumatizing pain and to subjugate people. But after a while, this thing at the center of the earth began to lose that power, began to lose its influence. And so slowly, over time, it moved closer to the surface, exposing itself, allowing us to see it for the first time. We named it supremacy. And this supremacy, we decided, needed to go, and so we waged war against it. We blew it to smithereens, and nothing happened. But somehow, one day, it blinked out of existence, leaving a crystalline structure that a village formed around. We're in that village. We are the people in that village, and something is happening here. Someone is trying to bring back supremacy in the killed village. Our job is to look around each of the 3 areas and look at things and see if there's a clue on them and solve this mystery that we're a part of. On any screen that you see, you can say, please look at newspaper, look at the body, pick up shovel, dig. Things like this. You will need to say the keywords correctly, but I am the interpreter, so I will interpret it live. I can poke you in the right direction if you ask for a clue. Together we can solve this mystery. I will transform now into your host.
So hi everybody. So this avatar is the main thing you're going to see from me. This is how I'm going to appear in the show, in the whole running. I'll just talk a little bit about the tech of this. Essentially, it's mocapping my face live. It's looking at what my face is doing and the orientation of what I am doing and moving based on that. And then the arms are based on me clicking and dragging them. So again, a few housekeeping things. This is completely interactive. It's probably better to think of it more as a D&D experience, Dungeons and Dragons experience, where I am the dungeon master essentially. And so any question that you have will have an answer within the lore. And so you can ask about absolutely anything, even if you think it's slightly irrelevant. That's completely fine. So you can also ask about obviously the story and say like, I want to go here, I want to look at this, why is this, that? But you can also ask about any technical questions that you have. So any interest of yours that suddenly pops into the view. So like, how are they doing that? What is the setup? Please ask away. There's no questions that are not here to be answered. And any questions that you think controversial, please just ask away. We can have these conversations too. So I'm gonna jump straight in now, and thank you so much for being here. So hi everybody, welcome to our village. The headlines of the newspaper read, someone wants to bring back the creature that nearly killed us all. Spam in the chat what that makes you feel. Someone is trying to bring back supremacy. They have been slowly ripping apart the town, and there are 3 main areas where the effects are clearest. The town center, which is named town, and is on the left-hand side where you can see a little circle saying town. The town center seems to hold whispers of what's going on. There can be crying heard from the forest. Maybe there's something to see there. And the morgue has seen increased activity of this spiritual variety. These spaces are connected, and what you do in one may change the other. Tread carefully. And so our first decision together that we need to make is, where do we go? So spam in the chat if you want to go to the town, to the forest, or to the autopsy place. You can ask me questions, or if you need a prompt on where to go or a clue, please ask in the chat and fire away. And if tomorrow you can read out anything that's happening in the chat, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, where do we want to go, everyone? Do you want to go to the town? Do you want to go to the forest? Do you want to go to the autopsy? Oh, we've got 1 vote for the forest. We've got, another vote for autopsy. Going once, going twice. We need a 3rd vote. Oh, it's equal. It's equal. Okay, let's go.
It's equal.
Ooh, it's equal. Okay, forest. It's the forest. The forest is winning.
Forest.
Let's go to the forest.
Okay, perfect. So we are all in the forest. The trees snake together above us, creating a ceiling of plant life. A very limited amount of sunlight slips through the cracks, illuminating the ground close to where we are standing. There's a mound of dirt with a red shovel sticking out the top of it. To the immediate right of your position, a water bottle is on the floor, standing upright, as if it was placed there. It's not completely empty. In the corner is a dark figure that seems to weep uncontrollably. They don't seem to notice you. What shall we do? So we can either interact with the figure that's crying, the shovel and the mound of dirt, or the water bottle.
Everyone spam in the chat which option you'd like. Figure, shovel, or water bottle.
You can also ask questions like, why is the person crying? Why is the water bottle so big?
Oh, we've got, okay, 2 for figure, 2 for water bottle, 2 for shovel. It's very equal.
Wow.
It's very,
Very
3,
even.
No, we've got 3 for figure. Let's do figure. Figure it is.
Figure. Amazing.
Someone's also asking, what's on the trees?
So what's on the trees? Great question. So this is actually the image that was my background at the beginning. So it's a plant from Trinidad and Tobago. And so I often look at plants from Trinidad and Tobago because that's where I'm from. So often I'm using them within the work because they give me kind of sort of comfort and home. And so the trees are mostly made out of that plant, just morphed in a way that gives it a very different kind of look, basically. And so the figure, when you begin to talk to the figure, the way they communicate is through images. It may not make sense right away.
Hey. Hey. You okay? Oh, God. I don't know if I can do this. I can't believe this has happened. I know. Okay. I'll be okay. Okay.
From this conversation, you get that those that are responsible for the mound have done this in order to protect the town. The mound I'm referring to is the mound of dirt with the shovel sticking out of it. You are not sure they can be trusted, but you know for sure that they have more information to give you. So in this room, we can either interact with the shovel and the dirt, or the bottle, or go to another room.
And just a reminder, everyone, you can ask questions all the way throughout, and your choices are exactly what makes the event happen. So be super noisy. Let us know what you want to do.
Yeah. Ask anything you want, really. Yeah, don't be shy. You can always just spam in the chat. And I'll chat a little bit about that. So that's one of the first videos I kind of made during the R&D, to understand the tone that I wanted to go through. And something that I often do is I often find a game that inspires me and try and figure out how to generate the tone that game has. And so the game that was inspiring me at the time was Clock Tower 2, and the opening cinematic had this scene of these people digging in a forest, and with this devil then suddenly popping up. And the tone was very it was somber, but also extremely mysterious. You don't know what's going on. Like nothing really is being told to you, but you can tell that it's an important part of the story. And so that first video that I made there was me trying out how to tell this story through this kind of mocap and through the similar editing style that that video game cutscene had.
I wonder if it'd be a good time to show some of that background footage from the start, from the process. I'm really curious to hear. I think some of the chat's also curious to hear, curious to see.
And so this is just a bunch of images. Basically, it's like my sketchbook of what inspired me and how the process went. So I began using a lot of programs to manipulate images that pre-existed. And then I was looking at these types of games. These are the kind of games I was looking at, Malawi, these horror games. And everything kind of started with Columbo. I wanted an inverse detective story where you kind of knew the ending, but you had to watch how it happened. And in my idea, a twist on the inverse detective story would be that the detective is the person also causing the most harm. They're seeking out people to harm. And so I was generating all these kind of images based on that, based on this idea, building this idea of the society being investigated by this thing that would eventually try and subjugate and harm them. And so the first idea of how to do this was to build this website, which is here, you're seeing now. It's a very bad, rough first version, but it was an idea of how to get the story out there and how to write a story like this. Because the story is very much based on the choices of where the audience is going and taken in snippets. It's a lot more like a mystery that's given to you in puzzle pieces, and you have to try and put the puzzle pieces together, rather than actually just have a plain story read to you. And I wanted to do that because something I was really interested at the time were looking at these things called ARGs, which is these games that play across the entire internet that require you to be a detective and start looking. And because of that, because of this intense way of looking, we can play with the idea that your looking can be violent, your presence can be violent, that just you searching for particular solutions may cause others harm. And so that was the main reason for this kind of, I guess, this rain storytelling, this dropping of small bits of story. And these other images are kind of like the prototype we're going through. This is this face scanning one. It's the first kind of attempt at the face scanning, which was very difficult, at least for me, to understand and wrap my head around. Yeah, and eventually we got better and better at it until this point, which was really great, actually, that came up like this. So yeah, I guess the whole process is done in a bunch of different ways, but it's mainly about this puzzle piece that is put together by interaction and by people participating within the practice.
Empty Eduardo asks, ooh, Clock Tower, what other games are you into?
Oh, Lord. So Clock Tower was a huge inspiration for this project, but so was Silent Hill. Silent Hill was one of my all-time favorite games, actually. But actually, I was looking at a lot of early MS-DOS games. And so we have these paintings. You see these old iconoclastic paintings. When I look at these iconoclastic paintings, I think of early 3D renders. So I think of renders that were made in the 1980s and 1990s, where the graphics processor couldn't really put textures on, but could create a nice smooth gradient of color. And so often you'd see buildings made out of very rudimentary shapes, for example, in the game like Star Fox, but you sometimes can get like this gradient that's really nice. It's almost like cell shaded. And so I saw this similarity in those paintings. And so I was looking at games like It Came from the Desert. I was looking at games like Beholder. I was looking at games like Morrowind, Daggerfall. A lot of early PC games that were trying to adopt a 3D open world aesthetic, but couldn't quite understand how to graphically grapple with the technical difficulties of that at the time.
That's super interesting. I feel like there's there's so many things to touch upon on that, and I'm hoping that we're gonna get through them all as we return to the game as well. Because there's been so many, as I suppose as part of this kind of R&D process, we did start playing different games at the beginning, and There's been so much games research that has gone into it, and I know you want to continue to do as well.
Yeah, like something I find strange is that we don't look at games as art. We don't look at games and like critique them as pieces of art. We critique them as entertainment. And so I feel like the conversation that we miss is what games make you do and how they make you do certain things and act in a certain way. And talking about acting in a certain way, if we can go back to the game. So again, your choices here are to go to the shovel and the mound of dirt, or the water bottle, or pick a new destination. If you want a clue from me, I suggest looking at the shovel.
I don't know if people earn that clue, but that's fine. Let's see what the chat's got to say. We've got one vote for the shovel. Another shovel. Everyone wants a shovel.
Perfect.
Shovel it is.
You use the shovel to dig through the mound of earth. The weight of the dirt feels unnatural, as though imbued with a sort of sorcery. As you pull away the last bits of dirt, you notice something. A burnt corpse is lying underneath all of the dirt. You call the local morgue, and they come to collect the body. It will now be available to examine in the morgue. Span the chat to pay respect to the body. So now this body is available in the morgue to look at. So we have another destination. So the only thing we can look at in this area is the water bottle.
People are saying let's go to the morgue.
Okay, to the morgue we go. As we enter the morgue, it's clear that this space has transitioned from a space of worship to a place that keeps death, although it's not as sterile as you hoped. A figure pops up from behind the desk and says to you, "Welcome to the morgue. Here you can examine any object you've picked up as well as corpses. Keep it clean, though." You mutter to yourself that you wish they would follow their own advice. In this room, we have a burnt corpse, a water dispenser, and a key. What shall we do?
What should we do? Also, I want to keep encouraging people to ask questions throughout, just in terms of anything to do with the wider process or your wider practice. You know, why did you make a morgue? I want to know why you made a morgue.
Is that a question? Should I answer? Okay, let's go for it.
I want to know.
Yeah. I guess I'll talk while we wait for the chat to respond. And we'll also talk a bit about this format. I think it's important to understand why are we doing this? Why can't we just do a presentation? Why can't we just speak to you and you get to do nothing? And I think the reason I'm doing this is because I'm really tired of art being so passive. Something I find out about games is that sometimes they put you in scenarios that you want to leave, but your desire to get through the scenario makes you continue. And often I don't see art pieces that you're responsible for the progression of the piece. And something about having the audience responsible for the beginning, middle, and end of what the piece is and what everyone's seeing in the room, it is something extremely powerful I think games have grappled with for years, that the art hasn't really followed. And so I'm trying to bring that power of moving the audience, the power of painting a picture of what's happening with the audience's decisions.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'll say.
No, it's really interesting. And speaking of which, the audience has piped up, and a lot of them want the key, but someone's also asking, Lucilanova is asking, what's up with the water dispenser?
So the water dispenser is a dispenser that gives out clean water. We didn't examine the water bottle. It may become slightly more clearer if we did. That's all I'm going to say for now without giving too much away. With the key, let's go pick up the key. You pick up the small metal key. Engraved on it is a symbol of fire. it looks like it would open a filing cabinet. So now in the room is still this figure and the water dispenser. And as we're waiting for the next bit of chat, I'll just talk more about why this body. Something I'm super interested in, again, is burnt bodies in video games. It's something that you don't often see. But when they're there, you don't really get the sense of... I think the first burnt body I saw in a video game was in GTA.
Of their history, right?
People.
You get no idea of their You get no idea of their history, right?
Well, it's also that, like, a burnt corpse is like, it's a lot. That's a really intense, traumatic thing to see. And I think in video games, people get burnt all the time, so it doesn't really come across as something to look at, to spend time looking at a burnt corpse. And I spent time looking at these burnt corpses in video games, and it's kind of so wild to see how much attention and detail goes into making something look like they've been through so much pain. And so this is actually from a video game. I can't actually remember which video game it was, actually. It's not GTA, because GTA is the first burnt corpse you saw. And yeah, sometimes I keep these things from games that I feel that they're thrown away. They're seen as something to give the audience feedback of, like, this is what happened, but they're not really taking into account what they're actually saying. Like, this is the burnt corpse. There's so much information in history that goes into, like, burning corpse, how that happens, the war, all this kind of stuff. So this is why I'm interested in, like, deeper dives into video games, and their models is such an interesting artistic practice that I do.
A lot of people actually want to know more about this burnt corpse, but also about your representation within the game and if there's any interrelationship between them.
What do you mean
question.
Representation in the game, interrelationship?
Well, I think at the beginning, because you switched into this avatar format, and someone's asking, Carib Mother Lover is asking, what about your body? How does this relate to representation for your own body? And someone else is asking, are you a dungeon master? Are you a corpse? As in, who is the avatar? These are wild questions, but I thought you'd like me to answer them.
Yeah, no, so the reason I chose this mocap, one was a technical idea of something I wanted to achieve. Like, I have always dreamt of having an avatar. Because I do Zoom so often, I'm often just having my face on the camera. And it's really difficult, like, especially as a trans person and someone who actually doesn't have any mirrors in their house and is trying to get to the sense of seeing themselves again. I have this pain when I look at myself. And as often I would deal with this by creating avatars within games. I would do this constantly to try and work through and process emotions. I process a lot of emotions through interactive mediums. And so I would make these avatars constantly, but obviously there would be limitations in the engines. And so I wanted to make an avatar that was mine, that I had designed and made, and I could be when I needed to feel held. And so this is the avatar that holds me, and it is every character that you can be in the prototype in the game is this character. So it won't just be me, it will become other people and be other people. And so there'll be a village full of people based on this avatar that holds my experience, but it starts to become other people and turning into other people. And it's also this other idea within the story of the game of this matrix, and essentially parallel universes living alongside each other. And so, I mean, I guess I don't really mind. But so where we are now may not or may be the real world. And so in the other world, you may see a different representation of me. So that's what I'll leave it. Yeah, and burnt corpses. I mean, if you try and Google burnt corpses on video games, actually, there's not too many that come up. And but there's a game called Spec Ops: The Line, and they use white phosphorus, which is a real chemical that's banned and using, and they're trying to use burnt corpses as a way to talk about the horrors of war and how mistakes are made and that mistake cannot be forgiven. And so for me, that was an interesting way of using burnt corpses, but also an extremely painful, violent way to depict and talk about something that actually has happened. And so, like, I have this push and pull with this kind of violence and this kind of representation within games, because often it's done in a way that also glorifies and encourages you to continue this violence within the game because they make it feel so good.
There's so much complexity that goes into games, and I think like working with you has really been incredible in terms of just delving into the depths of that complexity and what you're really doing with it. Someone Twee Whistler is asking, what is the role of video games in the contemporary crisis? A huge question, but also I think we should. Movement 81 is asking for a quick recap on the last scenes. There's a burnt corpse, a key, anything else?
Yeah, so the last scene was we went to the forest. In the forest, we spoke to someone who was crying. They said that something that happened underneath the mound, which we found out was a body that was burnt, has happened in order to protect people. So they're saying they burnt, or someone burnt this body to protect people. We dug up the mound of dirt. Underneath was a burnt corpse. We've taken that burnt corpse to the morgue to look at it. So currently, we haven't looked at the burnt corpse yet, but that is something that's probably our priority to do now it's here. The role of video games in our contemporary society, I think it's more ingrained than we think, and less respected than also we think. Because I think a lot of gamification, especially this monetization method that games has been just brought into the mainstream things we do. We're all using apps that have a way to make money from us, if it's through small purchases or just time, energy, all these kind of things. And so a lot of the small things that you saw in games and MMOs are now creeping up in things like metaverses, NFT spaces, your phone app, subscription services. All of these kind of models, video games have been doing for a very long time. And so there's a whole conversation about this digital real estate that video games push, and how that real estate has turned into apps on your phone that seem like you need them. And you seem like you need to, I have to pay for the subscription because I need these things. And I'm doing really well on Duolingo because it's given me 5 stars. That's a gamification of learning a language. So I think there's a huge amount of gamification that's happened within our day-to-day lives that we don't even see. And at the same time, when we talk about games, there's a level of, well, that's entertainment and that's over there, and I don't play games. Games are not for me. And we don't think of them as, you don't say that to paintings. You don't say that to sculptures. I think there's a way that we look at games which has diminished what they could possibly do for us. And
I definitely agree with that. And people are also very keen to go back to investigate the corpse. And after the corpse, to go back and check out what the water bottle was, if it was poisonous. So let's go ahead and investigate the corpse.
So, you asked to examine the body of a person in the forest. With much agitation, the figure who is in the morgue goes and fetches the body and placing it on the table. The skin is burnt from what looks like a raging fire from within the body. What the fuck is going on here? As you examine the corpse closer, it comes to life.
It burnt me. From the inside. I had no choice. I had nothing I could do to stop it. They had to kill me. They had to stop me. But one of them smiled as I died. I think they infected me. And they're infected too. You need to find out who they are. I'm failing.
Twee Whistler says, thank you for showing a point of view. You kissed the corpse. Alexander Boyce says, infection? ? Empty Edwara says, whoa. And Kane Station wants to find out what's in the water dispenser.
Amazing. Okay, so water dispenser first says, you would love to take some water from the water dispenser, but it looks like you need something to put the water in. I think it's very obvious what we need. So this is a world, obviously, where the corpses can come back to life. things don't make much sense, and there's a reason for that, and it has something to do with the key. But as people want to go back to the bottle, and I don't want to switch scenes so much, I'm going to, well, actually, we can just switch scenes very quick.
As you're walking, Empty Eduardo asks, is this the same face tracking that you used?
No, so this is a different kind of face tracking. So this is in a program called Adobe Character Creator. It's one that's you can use to make animations similar to maybe The Simpsons or Family Guy. So usually the characters that you would build would be very cartoony, but because it's just something that you can put into Photoshop, they can kind of be whatever. So this is a render of a 3D character that's turned into a JPEG that's cut up into the different parts of their bodies that allow me to do this and make it look 3D. But you can see that if I try and warp it, it's definitely 2D.
Oh, wow.
So if we go to the body, it says, you lift the bottle to your lips and are about to drink, and then you shake the thought from your mind. What are you thinking? A flash of someone's memory enters your mind. The stench of it makes it clear that it's some sort of lighter fluid or petrol. It's not suitable for drinking. You take the bottle. So now we have a bottle. We have a water dispenser that we know we can have water. And we have the last place to visit, which is the town. So what would you like to do first?
Spam in the chat. Let us know where you want to go, what you want to do. I wonder if it's a good time to differentiate the fate. Oh, visit the town, of course, says Carib Mother Lover.
The what, sorry?
Visit the town, of course, says Carib Mother Lover.
Visit the town. Okay, visit the town. On entering the town center, there is chaos. It's clear that something has happened here, and you're not sure exactly what it is. Police tapes line the streets and coordinating off a still structure that was supposed to be supremacy when it died. On the other side of the police tape is a group of gossipers. They are speculating on what's happening. They're all saying something about something, and perhaps it would be good to talk to them. So here we have either we can look at the crime scene, we're looking at the gossipers over here who have the symbol dead over them, or we can look at this safe or filing cabinet.
So as people are spamming, Movement 81 asks, the corpse burnt from within because he drank the firewater. And I think this is actually quite a good time to talk about, you're speaking a lot about the way that you kind of build narratives and build stories and how all of these different parts come together. And sometimes it's really about people sort of working out what's happening slowly over time, right? There's so many elements in your work. And I'm curious how you kind of approach that, building that kind of sense, or kind of making people build their own sense through the process, and how you approach that during this time as well, because the prototypes, I suppose, were part of, they're part of this wider story that you're building. It started with this kind of script. And I'm really curious how you decide kind of what elements go into the process. How did you decide it was going to be how did you decide it was going to be eye tracking? How did you decide it was going to be face scanning? How did you decide the sort of elements that go into making your world?
Yeah, so something that I've always struggled with is I'm usually overly overt. I'm very clear about what I'm talking about, and I have a huge love for mysteries and for giving the audience the benefit of the doubt that they can start putting things together, and although it might not all be put together correctly, that the story that will come out of that will be a more personal story because they are responsible for where they're placing things. So they will be like, I'm passionate that this is the beginning and this is the end and this is real and this person's lying and this person's burnt because the lighter fluid. And it's so interesting that you say that, and that's not why, but it's an interesting thing that you have just said. It's so fascinating that that's there, because that is part of it. But yeah, and so like hearing things from the audience like that is how I structure the stories. Essentially, I put something out there and I hear what the audience says about it. And then I kind of try to incorporate that idea and that shift within the narrative. And I like a narrative that can be able to shift just enough to allow the ways in which certain people think about things and the way in which certain people connect the dots to exist there, even if it's not the exact thing that I had thought. Something else that I was really fascinated in was creating a game that was all about looking and had clues. And so the first thing I thought about was the face and how we could control a game without having to use a controller and instead just have your presence there. And the reason I chose was looking at eye tracking technologies and technologies like this because the first thing that you do when you see kind of any kind of art is look at it if it's visual art. And if we could use the looking point, the point of someone just looking, the first point of interaction, as a point of actual interaction, as a way of inputting into the experience, then you'll have an experience that people are subconsciously affecting just by what their eyes are naturally drawn to. And so you can start really to paint this picture of how people act just normally, and using that as the main thing that you're talking about and the main kind of thing that you're trying to move around in the space. And so that's why I chose the looking or eye tracking for one of the main kind of control methods or main things that we're looking at. And the other thing was face scanning. And this is because a lot of the work is archival. So a lot of it will have Black trans people in it, archived within the earth, within the ground, within the trees, within everywhere really. And the idea of having people's faces start to bleed into the game and become part of the experience means that the space will start to archive those that are there. And so when people fail, you'll be able to see the faces of people that have failed. You'll be able to see who's still alive, who's not. You'll be able to see the color of people's skin who are in the space and how that affects things. And so using these 2 points of first contact, which is the face of someone and the way that they look, to me is like a great foundation of a detective mystery, how to solve a mystery through your face.
It's incredible. It's in the background, people are seeing at the moment, or on the screen, people are seeing some footage from the eye tracking behind the scenes, I suppose, from the R&D process. And it's also really leans into, Kane Station was asking a little bit about the textures you use, where you get them from, where the aesthetic comes from. And it's incredible that, through this process, it's that sense of like immediate or, real-time feedback that you're already investigating in games. Just to see, how the texture itself becomes a real-time reflection of the people within the space. It's really incredible.
Yeah, like something that I love about textures. So a lot of textures you're seeing are actually 254 pixels by 254 pixels, and then some of them are way more than that. But there's a reason I start there, is because that was what the PlayStation could do, 256. And so that was my first kind of call. And so what I usually do is I say, what can the PlayStation do? And that's just my constant choice, because it's something that I looked at a lot. And it's something that this idea of placing someone in a digital space came from when I was younger and seeing a PlayStation and seeing Wesley Snipes' Blade as Blade in the PlayStation and thinking that they scanned him and put him in there. And so I have this experience of when I was a child where I didn't understand what games actually were. And now to me, it's become something that I'm trying to actually recreate. And so a lot of the textures actually come from people that are around me, a lot of them. And I guess and this is an example of the face scanning that you're seeing. It's my horrible face. You'll see me making some very strange facial features.
I think we all got in there, though. We all tried it at one time, yeah.
But the thing is the faces are actually used so much within my work to build floors, dirt, rain, trees. Hair is used a lot too. But having it live and having the audience be part of that texturing process is something that I find so exciting, because the aesthetic, although will have this certain crust to it, because I like a crust, your presence will be able to change the mood of the space, because the house might start reflecting your eyeballs. The house, the scene might be made of your eyes. The floor might be made of your lips. And that's what I usually do behind the scenes when I'm rendering films. And so I wanted that to be part of the process, that things can change just based on those who are in the space. And there's a moment in which the texturing of the space is trying to archive those that are present.
I think it's now time the chat really wants to go to have gossip time. So if we return to the gossip time.
Talk to the crowd. There is no video for this one, but I will do voices. At first, they're excited by your presence and all begin chattering at once. But finally, they realize they're not going to get anywhere like this. So they begin speaking one by one. The first one tells you that they saw the statue move. They tell you that 2 nights ago, they were hanging around this area and they noticed the statue was missing. And they panicked and turned around to see if someone else was there, but when they had turned back, it had returned. The second one tells you they know who burnt the body. They tell you that everyone in town is responsible for burning the body. They said they didn't actually burn it, but it caught alight by themselves, and it was due to their negligence of this person's health. They had to kill this person in order to stop them from burning down the village. But they say they remember seeing 2 burning bodies. The third tells you that they can help you if you're stuck and you need a clue. So that's the audience members. So right now we have this figure in the middle and this safe.
As they're asking their questions, Empty Eduardo asks, what's the thinking behind this sunken face shape?
The sunken face shape? My sunken face shape?
Apparently, yeah.
So I guess the idea behind this main character that you're seeing is I made it as a representation of my Black trans family. And so I thought at the time, I was thinking a lot about how people had held me in situations where I didn't think I could be held by anyone. And so I made this figure that at the time when I did the first render, was like this godly Renaissance figure that was huge, and you'd look up to it and it would be amazing to see. And I started thinking about this idea of iconoclastic paintings and how they represent people, and how Black trans people don't really have a link to spirituality and a dramatic kind of acceptance of a spiritual practice or a spiritual history. And so I started to use these figures to render these iconoclastic images that you'll kind of see throughout these things, or a lot of iconoclastic images I looked at, and I tried to recreate their positions using this figure to give Black trans people that gravitas, to give these kind of figures that way of seeing. And so at the time I thought, oh, that's clear. Obviously not, because most people just name this figure that I am the alien. They call it the alien, which I find very, very interesting. That's another interesting aspect of like looking at something and othering it from you. And so I'm not completely against that either.
Interesting. It has become a key, features across a lot of your work now, I suppose, in different ways.
Yeah.
Kane Station says, open the safe.
So open the safe. So it's here. You use the key and you open the safe.
So that sound finally stopped, and I'm going to check out one of these computers that has this, that they've all turned on, but they're this weird creepy eyes. It's horrible, and the more you look at it, it kind of gives you a bit of a headache. Let's see what happens when I use the mouse to click.
You're calling, you're calling, you're calling, you're calling. Help us work.
It's like one of those
make world safe. Let
commercial
go of all your
presentations.
emotions. Let go of your family.
It's a bit
Serve a
bit
better
dark.
purpose. Look
what?
into
Just every time you stare at my eye,
serve the feast.
my head is throbbing.
Serve the feast. Serve the feast.
Is this awful? Alright. I think I'm gonna turn off this video. It's do it.
And so that's kind of like I'm kind of glad you got to that, but that's kind of like a little, it's not an Easter egg, but it's a glimpse into another reality. So that's what this key and this safe represents, is that there's an alternative reality going on here that may be responsible for what's happening in us. And I don't want to talk too much about that, because the alternative reality is going to become one of the main features of the work we're doing. Because basically what's happened is that there's going to be two different types of work that we're looking at, and two mysteries that overlap. And so once you start solving those mysteries, then you'll start to be able to solve the overlapping things. And I don't want to give too much away about that. But it's something that I've seen a lot in ARGs and I've never been able to do. And that's why I'm really trying to do this overcomplicated story, essentially, that makes no sense until you try and put it together. And it's all about essentially creating a world that can have theories within it, that can fit almost any kind of theory that you have, in order so that you can really start to like write the story yourself. And I'm never really going to tell you if you're right or wrong, but you might in the show feel if you're right based on what happens in the space.
So much power, or so much dispower, I'm not sure which. So much agency, I suppose, to see what happens within the space. It's definitely a new model to kind of have that really lie with the audience. I'm just wanting to check with everyone, because we are coming up to the last 5 minutes of the play. So I want to check if anyone's got any last questions they want to ask as we carry on navigating through the play. Brand Edwin, can't pronounce, Brand Iwink says, did one of the gossipers say that they had a clue for us?
They did. The clue is you will need the water to touch the structure in the crime scene. That's the clue. Very obvious clue.
What does the chat want to do with it? The water dispenser water?
Yes, but the water dispenser said that we needed something to put it in. And so we may need to go back there to fill it up.
What should we do, chat?
Or we can look at the crime scene and see what it says first, and then we'll be able to know, okay, this is what we need to do.
Let us know what we should do, chat. All about what you think.
You've got that 4 minutes remaining. 4 minutes of your life.
Kay Hannah Watson says, bottle. Brand Iwink says,
bottle.
Crime scene. Twee Whistler says, crime scene.
It's the crime scene.
Luca Lanova says, crime scene.
It says, you look at the crime scene. The closer you get to it, the more you realize it's scorching hot. It's unbearable. Even being close feels like you're cooking. Someone grabs you and pulls you away from it. They tell you it's dangerous. The surface of the figure is superheated for some reason, and you need something to cool it down. Maybe some water could help.
What should we do? What should we do, chat?
Well, if that wasn't a clue, I mean, I guess we know what we need to do.
Rory says, let's fill up that water bottle.
Okay, perfect.
Kane Station says, can you use your hands?
I can. Hi. So I can actually use my hands. I just don't have it set up because it's a different puppeting rig. But the great thing about these is that you can either drag and drop, or you can code it. No, just make it so that if you press like space on the keyboard, your character will do a specific mood or a particular emotion, like happy, sad, angry, or whatever, which will just basically change the eyes. So yeah, you can move your hands, and you can walk, and you can play scenes and everything. Let's fill up that water bottle, and I don't think I'm going to edit scenes. Okay, so you fill up the water bottle. So now you have a full water bottle here in your hands. And I guess what we're going to do with that water bottle. What do you think we should do? If this thing is scorching hot, where should we put it?
Where should we put the water? What do we need to cool down, maybe? 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
See if you get to the end of this. It'd be great.
I know, let's create a bit of pressure in the chat room.
Bum, 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 bum,
Over the body, on the sculpture, the crime scene.
You throw the contents of the water bottle on the figure. It sizzles and spits and hisses as the surface heat is reduced to something more tolerable. You can now approach it, but I would be careful how you do. You touch the figure. This makes no sense. You're like, what the hell am I looking at? You feel as though the figure wants to make you untrustworthy of people. Maybe the images should be ignored. You notice something's not quite right about the surface of this figure. That it looks like it could be chipped away if you use something heavy and metal. What could we use that's heavy and metal that we've seen before?
What can we use, chat? The safe, says Gain Station. Carib Mother Lover says scrape it with the key.
You try and
Brown
scrape
Die
it with the
Wink
key.
says shovel. Okay.
You try and
chosen.
scrape it with the key, but the key is tiny and just breaks in your hand. The safe is too heavy to pick up. Your last resort, the shovel, as you smack it against the structure, you notice something strange. Bits of this structure start piling off, and you see that there's another burnt corpse underneath this crystalline structure. It looks at you with a twisted face, a smile that seems would kill. Your stomach feels sick, and the figure is not the original Supremacy. It looks like it's a duplicate. That's why it's so hot.
You are too late. We have succeeded. I have succeeded. Supremacy has risen. I am just a double. Supremacy will return. There's nothing you can do to stop it. You're too late. Thank you.
That's it.
That's the that's such a dramatic ending. We have also reached the end of the stream, and that's such a dramatic ending to end on. What can people do if they want to get in touch with you or stop Supremacy?
I guess you can follow me on Instagram. That we are going to release a ARG, which essentially means something that you can play online now and over time. So keep checking in there. But it's not currently out. And so that's what I'll say. And there will also be a Discord we'll release with it that will kind of talk about the whole process of trying to build this and all the difficulties that we're going through. So just keep a lookout, and we'll keep you updated.
Keep you updated. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time tonight. It's been amazing to have you play in the chat room and to direct everything. If you've got any questions from the Serpentine side, please feel free to just get in touch with us at digital@serpentinegalleries.org. And also to, just get in touch with Danielle as well. So we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.